Hey there, I'm Maz, and welcome to Maz Show. This is your space to explore big ideas through books, society, knowledge, and history, all with one goal to build a better world and a brighter future. If you are curious, reflective, and ready to grow, you're in the right place. So tap follow, hit subscribe, and let's get thinking.
Ames had spent years building relationships in the region, and suddenly he's watching it all transform in real time.
And he was uniquely positioned to understand these changes, wasn't he?
Absolutely. By 1982, Ames was the CIA's chief Middle East analyst. He was briefing President Reagan directly on regional developments. That's how valued his insights were.
What made his perspective so valuable during this particular crisis?
Well, unlike many others in Washington, Ames had spent years developing deep connections with various factions in Lebanon. He understood the nuances that others missed.
Let's talk about the Israeli invasion. How did that change things?
The invasion in June 1982 completely reshuffled the deck. Israeli forces surrounded Beirut, trying to force the PLO out. It created an unprecedented humanitarian crisis.
And the U.S. had to respond, right?
Yes, and this is where Ames's role became crucial. Secretary of State George Shultz assembled a small team, including Ames, to work on diplomatic solutions.
What kind of solutions were they looking at?
The immediate priority was negotiating the PLO's evacuation from Beirut. U.S. envoy Philip Habib was on the ground, but he needed solid intelligence to work with.
And Ames provided that intelligence?
Exactly. His previous connections with Palestinian leaders gave him unique insights into what terms might be acceptable to all sides.
That must have been incredibly delicate work.
It was. And you have to remember, this wasn't just about the PLO. The situation in Lebanon was incredibly complex, with various factions all vying for power.
How did Ames navigate all these different groups?
He had this remarkable ability to see beyond official positions. He understood that behind every faction were people who could be reasoned with.
Did that approach work during the evacuation crisis?
By August 1982, yes. The PLO agreed to evacuate Beirut. It was a diplomatic breakthrough, though not without its costs.
What kind of costs are we talking about?
Well, the power vacuum left behind created new challenges. We saw the rise of different groups, particularly among the Shia population.
And how did Ames view these emerging groups?
He was concerned. His reports from this period show he recognized that removing the PLO might lead to even more radical elements taking their place.
That's quite prescient, given what happened later.
Indeed. By late 1982, Ames was warning about the growing influence of Iran in Lebanon and the potential for new forms of militant activity.
Let's talk about the peace initiative that followed. What was Ames's role there?
He was part of Shultz's team developing what became known as the Reagan Plan. It was an attempt to build on the momentum of the PLO evacuation.
How did that work out?
Unfortunately, it gained little traction. The region was too unstable, and various parties weren't ready for the compromises it required.
That must have been frustrating for someone like Ames.
Yes, but he remained committed to finding solutions. That's why he continued making trips to Beirut, even as the situation deteriorated.
What was the atmosphere like in Beirut during these visits?
Tense. Very tense. The US Embassy had become a crucial hub for regional intelligence, but that also made it a potential target.
And Ames was aware of these risks?
Absolutely. But he believed the work was too important to stop. The region needed people who could build bridges.
What kind of bridges was he trying to build at this point?
He was particularly focused on understanding the changing dynamics among Lebanon's Shia community. This was becoming increasingly important.
Why was that such a priority?
Because the traditional power structures were shifting. The PLO's departure had created space for new groups to emerge.
And these were the groups that would eventually become significant players?
Yes, though I don't think anyone fully anticipated just how significant they would become.
Let's talk about Ames's analytical work during this period. What made it stand out?
He had this unique ability to combine high-level analysis with ground-level understanding. He knew the policy implications, but also the human factors.
That's quite rare in intelligence work, isn't it?
Extremely rare. Most analysts either focus on the big picture or the details. Ames could do both.
How did that influence his recommendations?
He consistently pushed for approaches that acknowledged both strategic needs and human realities. He knew you couldn't separate the two.
Was Washington receptive to that kind of nuanced approach?
Not always, but Ames had earned enough respect that his views couldn't be easily dismissed.
What about his work on the embassy itself? What was his role there?
The embassy was our primary intelligence hub for the region. Ames would visit regularly to coordinate analysis and maintain contacts.
That must have been challenging given the security situation.
It was, but Ames believed in the importance of face-to-face diplomacy, even in dangerous times.
How did he maintain his optimism during such a difficult period?
He wasn't naive. He was optimistic because he had seen firsthand that dialogue could work when given a chance. Beirut wasn't always a war zone. In the 1960s, it was actually known as the Jewel of the Mediterranean, a glamorous destination for celebrities and tourists.
That's such a stark contrast to what it became during the Civil War.
Exactly. By 1983, Beirut had become incredibly dangerous. You had sniper fire, artillery exchanges between rival factions, car bombs, kidnappings. It was chaos.
And this was the environment Robert Ames was working in?
Yes, and Ames was extraordinary at navigating it. He was the CIA's top Middle East analyst and Near East director, a 22-year veteran who could brief presidents one day and sit cross-legged with Bedouin sheikhs the next.
What made him so effective in that region?
Well, he had this unique ability to build relationships with Arab intelligence figures. He actually maintained a controversial back channel with the Palestinian Liberation Organization when it was still considered a terrorist organization.
That must have been incredibly delicate work.
It was. For more than a decade, Ames was actually the sole US conduit to Yasser Arafat and the PLO. CIA Director William Casey later said Ames was the closest thing to an irreplaceable man.
Let's talk about that day in April. What exactly happened?
At approximately 1:30 p.m. local time, a suicide bomber drove a van packed with about 2,000 pounds of explosives straight into the embassy.
You know what's interesting? That van actually had quite a journey. It was originally sold in Texas, then bought used and shipped to the Gulf before the attack.
Right, and according to former CIA operative Robert Ames, the van broke through an outbuilding, crashed through the lobby door, and that's where it detonated.
How devastating was the blast?
It was catastrophic. The explosion collapsed the entire central facade of the horseshoe-shaped building. The blast was so powerful it was heard throughout West Beirut and broke windows up to a mile away.
And the casualties?
63 people were killed, 32 Lebanese employees, 17 Americans, and 14 visitors and passers-by. Over 120 were injured.
And this was particularly devastating for the CIA, wasn't it?
It was the single greatest loss of life in CIA history. 8 CIA officers were killed, including Robert Ames, Station Chief Kenneth Haas, James Lewis, and most of the Beirut staff.
Who claimed responsibility?
The Islamic Jihad organization claimed responsibility. The US later believed Hezbollah was behind it, though they denied involvement.
What was their motivation?
They were trying to force Americans to leave Lebanon. The US had entered as part of a multinational peacekeeping force in 1982, and Iranian-backed groups strongly opposed Western presence.
How did President Reagan respond?
President Reagan and First Lady Nancy Reagan personally attended the ceremony when the victims' coffins arrived at Andrews Air Force Base. There was also a memorial service at Washington National Cathedral attended by 3,000 people.
What about Robert Ames's family? How did they handle the news?
It was particularly difficult because his 6 children didn't even know he was a spy until after his death. He's now buried at Arlington National Cemetery. His headstone is the only one there that bears the words Central Intelligence Agency.
That's incredibly powerful.
And you know what makes it even more poignant? Ames was posthumously selected as one of the CIA's first trailblazers.
Did this attack lead to any changes in how the US handles diplomatic security?
Absolutely. It led to the creation of the Diplomatic Security Service and completely transformed how we protect our embassies abroad.
What specific changes were made?
The State Department created mandatory minimum physical security standards for diplomatic facilities, allocated new construction budgets, and elevated the Office of Security to bureau status.
And this wasn't the end of the violence in Beirut that year, was it?
No, tragically, 6 months later in October, another suicide bombing targeted the Marine barracks, killing 241 American service members.
How did these attacks affect US foreign policy?
They marked a turning point. The US had to completely rethink its approach to counterterrorism and peacekeeping missions. The mission in Lebanon showed the dangers of sending troops without fully understanding the risks and complexities.
And what about the intelligence community? How did they adapt?
The loss of Robert Ames and the entire CIA Beirut staff forced a complete overhaul of how intelligence operations were conducted in high-risk areas.
It really was a watershed moment, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It was considered the beginning of Islamist attacks on US targets and fundamentally changed how America viewed terrorism threats.
How is this event remembered today?
The fallen CIA officers are honored with stars on the CIA Memorial Wall at headquarters, a permanent reminder of their sacrifice.
And Robert Ames's legacy?
He's remembered as someone who truly understood the complexities of the Middle East and worked tirelessly to build bridges of understanding, even in the most challenging circumstances.
What do you think he would make of the Middle East today?
Given his approach to diplomacy and relationship building, I think he'd still advocate for dialogue and understanding, even in the face of seemingly intractable conflicts.
That's quite a legacy to leave behind.
Indeed. And it's worth noting that he didn't live to see the eventual handshake between Arafat and Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin on the White House lawn, something he had worked toward.
Let's talk about the rescue efforts after the bombing.
Rescue workers worked around the clock, unearthing the dead and wounded. It was particularly challenging because of the extensive damage to the building.
Were there any notable acts of heroism?
Yes, Charles Light, the embassy's Marine Security Guard detachment commander, despite having severe shrapnel wounds and 5 crushed neck vertebrae, worked for 18 straight days helping survivors and securing classified information.
That's incredible dedication.
It really shows the spirit of service that characterized so many of those involved, both before and after the attack.
When you look at the changes made after the bombing, the new security measures, the creation of the Diplomatic Security Service, do you think they've been effective?
They've certainly improved security significantly, but as we've seen in the years since, the challenges of protecting diplomatic missions in dangerous areas remain complex.
It's a constant balance between security and the need to maintain diplomatic presence.
Exactly. And Robert Ames's star shines particularly bright, a reminder that sometimes the most effective intelligence work comes not from confrontation, but from building bridges of understanding.
Thank you for joining us for this powerful story of sacrifice, service, and the ongoing challenge of protecting those who serve abroad. Until next time.
Mad show, let's go, open up your mind and grow. Facts and stories, things you never know. Every episode, we light the glow. Step into the world of Mad Show. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mad Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow. New ideas begin to shine. Breaking limits, crossing lines. Every moment feels divine. In the world of Mad Show time. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mad Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow.